of the host and guests, and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operators of this radio station.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. Thank you so much for tuning in and making GPS a part of your afternoon routine. So, last week, Tuesday, we had a panel of women on giving their opinion on what has become a very contentious topic here in the Bahamas, specifically speaking, the topic of marital rape. It was an all-female panel, and we got a lot of men who were a little hot under the collar, calling in and carrying on and rowing the women and calling them feminists and everything else but a child of God. So anyway, I promised last week that I would try to do a part 2 of the show with an all-male panel. And so said, so done. So joining me here today, I was only able to get 2 men. I reached out to a few others, but they weren't able to do it. But trust me, these 2 coming strong. So they're going to represent their various views. So joining me today are the former Speaker of the House, Halson Moultrie. Mr. Moultrie, welcome to GPS.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to see you. You know, Mr. Moultrie and I go way back because he's a BFMite. So, you know,
Yes.
I know Holly from way back in the day in our BFM days. So welcome to the show. It's good to see you again.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And I know you have some, now make sure you talk directly into that microphone so our audience can hear you. I don't know if I can pull any closer, but make sure you speak directly into that. That's as far as it goes. So you're going to have to sort of lean into that to make sure that our audience is able to hear you to hear you well, because we want to make sure that we can hear you. Also joining us on the show today, is this our first time meeting?
First time.
Yes, this gentleman came highly recommended by Bishop Walter Hanschel, who I had also reached out to see if he could be a part of the show today. But unfortunately, he was unable to make it. And he said to me, Michelle, I know somebody who would be excellent to be on the show. He said he and I don't necessarily have the same views on this issue, but I know that he will bring some very intelligent conversation. Pastor Cedric Moss. So welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Michelle.
And looking forward to a really good conversation. So I know there are a couple of things in this country that really can divide Bahamians. Politics is one of them, and apparently marital rape is another, where we see Bahamian people taking one side or another and are adamant about their view and not very tolerant in many cases about the opposing view. But I think it's only fair that we get the perspective of the male today. One of the things that I don't like about this whole discussion is that it has degraded into what seems to be an us against them conversation. Men against women, women against men. And I really think that's unfortunate because I'm pretty sure that that is not what this is supposed to be about. But I wanted to hear your views, gentlemen, before we dive any further, and start to hear from our audience as to what your views are on the matter. The telephone number is called 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272. Our WhatsApp line to send us a text message, 8010271, 8010271. Mr. Moultrie, let's start with you. What are your views on this whole question of marital rape?
I believe the major challenge that we have in discussing this whole topic of marital rape is, firstly, it is a relatively new concept within the tradition of our Christianity, where it appears that an outside external agenda is being introduced into our traditional concepts. Now, let me say from the onset that I don't think that there is a male out there, even ones who may find themselves in circumstances where they commit violent acts against women, that would support the concept of violence in any form against a woman.
You sure about that?
And I believe while there might be some men who get engaged in such unlawful activities, I don't think that it is their purpose and desire to be physically violent with women. As a matter of fact, men are not really inclined to physical violence against each other.
So how do you explain the high levels of domestic violence in this country? Where men
you have circumstances, you have, in my estimation, you have circumstances where persons are unevenly yoked and they get involved in relationships. Sometimes, in some occasions, in my experience, especially my legal experience, we have circumstances where one party in the marriage is way more advanced academically than the other party, and it is difficult then to resolve conflicts, and a person who lacks the capacity to negotiate an argument successfully usually turn to violence, whether it is against a male or a female. And so you have that circumstance that develop. And so I want to make it clear from the beginning, because I noticed that the conversations are degenerating into this concept of, if you say you don't support marital rape, they call you sexist, chauvinistic, misogynist, and that sort of stuff. And then the men turn and start to argue that women are from the feminist movement, from
lesbian,
the women liberation movement,
everything else,
and so on. So it degenerates into a discussion that is not helpful to anyone.
Right.
Now, when I was a speaker, I was invited down to St. Lucia to participate in a conference by the United Nations Women and Sisters for Change, after we had some incidents in Nassau Village, the constituency that I represented, where 3 young ladies were murdered. And I received a lot of documentation. I thought it was such an interesting meeting that when I got back to Nassau, I tabled some of those documents in the House of Assembly so that we could really discuss the whole situation at the highest possible level. Regrettably, it has descended into this us against them. And I kept reminding the women as we moved along at that time that we don't want to make this adversarial.
Right.
Because if you make it adversarial, you have to expect resistance. And that is not really what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You want accommodation, and you want this nebulous and abstract concept of equality. I call it nebulous and abstract because I don't believe there's any such thing as equality among human beings and equality with respect to capacity of human beings. I believe God designed us all to be unique and to be different and to be complementary to each other.
Okay. All right. Pastor Moss, let's hear from you. What are your thoughts on what he had to say and then your position on this matter?
In principle, I agree with him that I agree with Mr. Moultrie that men generally do not subscribe to the view of violence towards women in particular. So I share that view. But I think it is unfortunate where we find ourselves in this discussion because we have more common ground than we are acknowledging. And so, for example, I think this is the fundamental question. Does a husband have a right, or should he be able to engage in sexual intercourse with his wife whenever he wants and however he wants, whether she consents or not?
Mm-hmm.
I think all right-thinking Bahamians would say no. No, he doesn't have that right.
Well,
whenever he wants and however he wants.
You know, a lot of persons within the religious community would say that you are going against the word of God, Pastor.
No. I think people are missing the nuanced way they're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I have read of particularly heinous acts of violation that have taken place in marriage, not in this country, but outside. One, this husband sodomized his wife repeatedly throughout the night. She required emergency surgery. She had digestive issues, and she had permanent damage because of what he did. If that took place in the Bahamas, she has no protection.
Mm-hmm.
No right-thinking Bahamian supports that a woman, all of a sudden, because she got married, she does not have the protection that she had when she was a single woman.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our common ground. That is where we start. And you want to tell me that as a society of adults, we cannot think about how do we take our common ground and find a way to address that mischief without upsetting and creating mischief for healthy, normal relationships. Mm. We can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is unfortunate that we are in this, like you said, us against them conversation and not acknowledging our common ground to find that place of addressing the mischief.
I'm glad you said healthy relationships, because I think that that is a key component that is missing a lot when we have this discussion. Because I keep hearing men and women, because some women oppose this as well, saying that you can't, a man can't rape his wife. But what I keep hearing from them is, it is according to the Bible, it is the duty of the spouse to sexually satisfy the other. That, the Bible talks about coming together and not depriving each other and this kind of thing. The Bible talks about the man having authority over the woman's body, and likewise the woman having authority over the man's body. The Bible talks about all of that. What we, I believe, are missing, though, in this conversation is that is all well and good for a normal, healthy relationship. But unfortunately, and if you believe the statistics provided by the University of the Bahamas in their recent study, where they report that more than 4,000 women in this country have stated that they were at some point in their marriage forced upon, raped by their husbands. Clearly, not everybody who is married is enjoying a healthy, normal relationship. So what I don't quite grasp, and I need you gentlemen to help me understand this, because I know, Pastor Miles used to teach it all the time that men need sex. So sex is very important to men. Not to say it's not important to women, but this is a basic need of the male, a man. I get that. But what I don't understand is that how is it that we cannot grasp the fact that not everybody who walk down the aisle finds themselves now in a normal, healthy, loving relationship? So what of those who are trapped in these relationships where all out abuse, degradation, whatever else you want to call it, is happening in the confines of their bedroom? Do we now say, well, like how they used to say back in the day? I remember my uncle was a police constable many years ago when I was a little girl, and he often talked about the story of how people would come, not very often, but people would come into the police station complaining that their husbands had physically abused them, beaten them up or whatever, and the response was, "Oh, we can't do anything about that because that's a domestic matter." So how is it that we have not evolved from that place where police figure they couldn't stop someone from being brutalized because that's a domestic matter? How are we still there in 2022 where we can't seem to separate the fact that not everybody is enjoying a normal, healthy, loving relationship? Is sex that important? Please help me understand, gentlemen.
Well, first of all, let me say this. I've heard about this recent study done by the University of the Bahamas. And Bahamians ought to be very careful when aliens or foreign persons come into our territory and purportedly conduct surveys and disseminate information that seeks to persuade the public in one direction or the other without producing the scientific evidence and factual basis upon which that survey was done.
So you're questioning the authenticity of that work?
The validity of it. And the reason why I would do that is because as an attorney, when this matter first came about many years ago, a number of us searched the cases in the United Kingdom to see how these matters were being treated. And then we searched cases in the Bahamas to see how many times rape or allegations of rape were made in divorce proceedings. Now, you couldn't use the word rape because that was not a part of the law. But there was mental cruelty, physical cruelty, and in the process of describing a physical cruelty or mental cruelty, you can easily get a good picture of whether or not a person had violently oppressed the woman or abused the woman against her will under one of the grounds of divorce, which was physical cruelty. It's difficult to find those instances. And so I'm concerned as to the source of the data where someone can come in and suddenly find 4,000 women who are giving this information because we couldn't find it. I'd like to see that report and to get the source of that information, because I also saw another report out of Canada, one out of the United States, one out of the United Kingdom, and they use the same 4,000 women. I don't think it's just happened to be.
So you think it's some hidden agenda?
I just think it's just too convenient.
Okay, we have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Madam Michelle.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you.
And good afternoon to two great men in the studio, and I consider them to be alpha male men. Pastor Cedric Moss and my good friend, Harley Moultrie. I am comfortable with both of them in the studio. I support the comments already that they have already made. And let me first say, I do believe that there can be some unruly man in terms of abusing their wife. No which way I will support that. I have two beautiful daughters. I do believe that a case he said, and then Mr. Moultrie, a personal friend of mine, he's a lawyer. A case he said in my business place, he would like to see how the Attorney General could come up with the word rape in marriage when two persons are under the same roof. But I heard Pastor Morse on another show, and the question that he alluded to, the premise, they run from it, and Madam Michelle, I hope you will not run from this premise that he used again. A healthy relationship. Underline that word, healthy. Mr. Moultrie said, Canada can find 4,000 women, and the UB can find 4,000 women that oppose, and we have 4,000 men, yet we have yet to question or talk to or have a conversation to. I am of the belief that this is a plan from the devil, from the pit of hell. But let me go back to a healthy relationship. If that relationship is healthy, like Pastor Morse is alluding to, and I will not ask him to, please, let's send that message home. Healthy. And I'm reading from Proverbs chapter 12 and 4. A virtuous woman is a crown to her husband, and she that maketh him ashamed is like rottenness in his bone. Now, I am not a biblical scholar like Pastor Morse, but if that relationship is healthy, I believe that only applies to a virtuous woman. Now, the liberated women and the feminine men, they cannot have a healthy relationship because that is not a relationship. They married on the point of convenience. This is where the problem is. If you decide to go before God and man on the premise of convenience, you cannot have a healthy relationship. And this is where the problem is, because a majority of people who is pushing this agenda, they married on convenience. Pastor Cedric Morse is talking from a spiritual point of view, and I am a believer. And it only can be a healthy relationship if the relationship is of God. But if you decide to marry for convenience, well, you're bound to have some problems.
So let me ask you something, Carl.
And then let me finish. Let me go back to this point on Proverbs 31. The Bible speaks of Proverbs 31. That's Pastor Morse is speaking to that also. A healthy relationship. And this is what he said. This in verse 10. It's right there.
Let me ask you something, caller.
Yes.
Do you believe that we should only allow people who are believers, who call themselves Christian, who could, in your opinion, have a healthy relationship because they have that spiritual background? Should they be the only... Oh, let me finish my point. See, this is where me and you fall out every time. Should they be the only ones who are allowed to get married in this country?
Madam Michelle, can I respond now?
Please.
I cannot speak to that or for anyone. Any adult, I cannot speak for them.
What do you mean you can't speak for them? That's a simple question.
You have same sex in the U.S. You have same sex in the U.S. getting married, and they believe they have healthy relations. That is not a healthy relationship.
You are missing my point. Let's keep the same sex question out of this. Let's talk man and woman now.
Go ahead.
Are you suggesting to me, based on your rationale, that unless you present yourself to be a believer who believes in the word of God, a Christian, that you should not be allowed to be married?
Well, I'm not. That's a choice they have to make. But I believe a marriage is only for Christians or believer. That's my belief.
Okay.
You ask the question. I think it's on. And this is what Pastor Moses said. If that relationship is healthy, there should be no. And when that relationship becomes unhealthy, somebody went astray.
Pastor Moss is shaking his head. That's not what he's saying. You're trying to put words in his mouth.
Okay, well.
Here's my point, and here's why I'm asking.
Okay.
That.
You don't have to agree. I'm a man. And I'm a man and love being a man.
Here's the point that I'm trying to make.
Go ahead.
We do not, as we often hear in this discussion, live in a theocracy. We say we're a Christian nation, but there are many people in this nation who are not Christian. They might be religious, but they ain't Christian. Okay. Some worship under other religions. As long as our law permits them to be married, then you cannot say that this conversation only applies to the healthy relationship that exists within the biblical perspective of marriage. Okay. Because then if that's the case, you need to change your law so only those people who fit your description could get married.
Okay.
The reality in which we live in this country is that there are probably more people who are not believers, who are not Christian, who are not following the word of God as we believe it to be, who have entered into marriages, some of them healthy.
Okay.
And some of them not.
Okay.
So as long as our law permits people, no matter what your religious background, no matter what you believe, to get legally married in this country, you have a very, in my opinion, and I'm a believer, you have a very myopic view.
Fine.
That the only persons who are supposed to qualify for this conversation are those who fall under the description of a healthy Christian marriage. That is not the reality for many people in this country who are married.
Okay.
Let's be real now.
All right. Can I
so
respond?
What do we do?
Can I respond?
With that entire population who don't fit within your little narrow description of what marriage should be?
Can I respond?
Please do.
I have an 89-year-old mother who is alive today. She's been married to my father for 49 and 6 months years. She is my mentor right now because my father's passed. She's a preacher. She's a preacher and a believer. Listen to me. And I listened to what she said. Only a group of liberal-minded and effeminate men.
Here we go again.
Is behind this agenda.
This is exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of the show.
This is only
Why do you have to label people?
Listen to me. Listen.
Because they do not agree with you.
Only a group of effeminate, liberal-minded person is pushing this agenda.
Oh, you just make me tired, you know. You really to suck my energy, man.
The problem is this, like they are trying to bully the prime minister into their agenda. And this will not work in this country.
You realize you answer the question, right?
The prime minister into agenda. My mother is a virtuous woman to my father. I am saying if the marriage is built on a marriage of convenience, you could bound to have problems. If the marriage is a healthy marriage and a virtuous woman, there will be no problems in that marriage. They are trying, this is a force set out to bully the prime minister into their own agenda. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, go right ahead. And you ain't let me give you a message from one of them ladies who's on the show last week, but I'm sure you could use her imagination as to what she had to say to you. I know we have another caller, but Pastor Moss, let me let you respond to that, please, because I see you shaking your head when he tried to put some words in your mouth just now.
Yeah, no, I would say that you have healthy and unhealthy marriages within Christian marriages and outside.
Exactly.
And I do believe that two Christians are better positioned to have a flourishing marriage. But unfortunately, there are many Christians who don't have that.
You have pastors beating up on their wives. Let's be real.
And there are unbelievers who have healthy marriages.
Let's go to the phone lines, please. Caller, welcome to GPS.
God bless you and good afternoon, Michelle. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm blessed and God for life. Good day, Halson, Moultrie. Good day, Pastor Moss. How you all doing today?
Very well done.
The JT calling in. Let me answer the question, Michelle, that Brother P did not answer. As long as it's one male and one female, heterosexual, one male, one female, who consent to become wedded to each other in holy matrimony before God, any couple can and should be able to get married in this country as long as it's heterosexual, because that's God's way, and as long as they consent willingly and freely to do so. Christian as well as non-Christians get married and ought to get married. When God established the institution of marriage in the Garden of Eden, Christianity didn't exist. Godliness existed, perfection existed, but not Christianity. Adam and Eve were not quote-unquote Christian, and I am one of those wonderful believers in Christ. But we've got to look at this thing sensibly, and Reverend Moss just now answered the question properly. You know, the other thing I wanted to say too is I've heard one or two persons say on your show, Michelle, that persons who have never been married ought not to talk on this issue.
So then I need to excuse myself.
And Michelle, I've not been married and I'm 9 years of age. But guess who also never was married and is the greatest authority on marriage? Jesus Christ himself.
Well, technically he married to the church, but I get your point.
No. But yeah, when we talk about one man, one woman in marriage, Jesus Christ as a human being was never married.
Mm-hmm.
So those who might think that somebody who was never married ought not to speak on the issue, please you all talk to God and ask God why He's talking about it. You see, when a lot of people try to bring arguments that they have no wisdom about, they tend to sound wise, but they end up, and I say this respectfully, they tend to make themselves look and sound foolish. And I've been in that position before, where I looked and sounded foolish. That's why I can say what I just said. But the long and short of it is, Michelle, and I'd like to ask both of your guests, because you haven't asked them this question at face value yet. And I'm getting the impression that the answer may be yes, but I'd like to hear them say, do each of you gentlemen support the idea of marital rape?
When you say support, what do you mean? That both of these gentlemen on the panel today have opposing views.
Okay. Can a husband be guilty? We know it's not in law yet, Brother Moultrie. But morally speaking, can a man be guilty of raping his wife, and can a woman be guilty of raping her husband, morally speaking?
Well, I'm on the record as indicating that I am conflicted on the matter.
Okay.
For various issues, reasons.
All right.
Number one, from a legal perspective,
yes, sir.
If laws are passed to legalize marital rape,
mm-hmm.
then it would become possible legally for a man to rape his wife legally.
But that's why I didn't ask you the legal question with all due respect. So I asked you from the moral point of view.
I'm giving you both sides. That's why I'm conflicted.
Okay.
Because morally and spiritually,
yes,
if you accept the marriage union
right.
as it is laid out based on the biblical principles, which
right.
never change,
right.
while laws might change,
right.
the biblical principles established from Genesis 2:24,
okay,
it indicates that when the woman was formed, she was brought to the man, and the Bible says, for this reason, the man will leave
right.
his mother
and father
and
yes.
cleave to his wife, and they should become
one
flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Now, one flesh.
Yes.
If we understand that concept, and that is a challenge for many persons who are not of the faith,
right.
because they cannot even accept the Trinity,
right.
three becoming one.
Correct.
But if we accept that there is only one flesh, it's impossible for one flesh to rape itself.
So is it also impossible for one flesh to murder itself, sir?
No.
So,
wait. Listen to his question again.
Yes, okay.
Ask that question again.
Is it possible, Brother Moultrie, for one flesh to murder itself based on the same argument you just made about rape?
No, it's not the same argument.
No, I'm saying...
Why is it different? Hold on.
It's
Why
not
is it
the
different?
same argument. Because the product of a man and a woman coming together in a relationship, in a sexual relationship as a husband and wife, produces one flesh.
You're talking
Now,
about the consummation of the marriage after the I do's.
Yes. Now, it's possible for an individual who's a male or a female to pull a gun or a knife and stab another individual. But that is completely different from the concept of coming together in a marriage union. That's completely different.
What is the statutory definition of rape, Brother Moultrie?
Now, the statutory definition of rape basically calls for, and this is another challenge that I have with the whole concept, because based on the statutory definition of rape, only a man can be charged with rape.
Okay. Now, I'm glad you put it like that.
Pastor Moss is shaking his head no.
Feel free, sir. Feel free.
Well,
it's any person.
Go ahead.
Any person, but if you read it further, it says a person must penetrate. In other words, this is in the this is United Kingdom.
Go ahead and read it so our audience can hear it, Pastor Moss.
I'll let him finish.
Let me say this, and this is why, because we don't have the marital rape law here, right, yet. It may be enacted, but in the United Kingdom, where we adopt most of our statutes from, it says to prove marital rape, the prosecution must prove 1, penetration of the anus, the mouth, or the vagina has occurred. 2, the act of penetration was intentional by, of course, the husband. 3, the complainant did not consent to the act of penetration. And you notice penetration is repeated.
Correct.
Now, what does a part on the woman that produces penetration?
But you could penetrate with something else, Holly. It don't have to be a body part.
Exactly.
No. That is in the law, though. Okay, the 4th reason. The defendant did not believe within reason that the complainant had consented to the act. So what this tells me legally is this changes the entire concept of legal analysis from being objective to being subjective. In other words, in a marriage relationship where sex is expected, the DNA evidence is irrelevant. Any bruises and scars become irrelevant because sex in itself is a violent act where people can get bruised, bitten, and scratched, and so on in the act of sex. So there are no witnesses. So it boils, what they've discovered in the countries that have enacted this law, when they brought this matter before the court, the analysis became subjective in that it was whether the wife was consenting or whether she was not consenting.
But mostly
let me finish, and whether the husband believed that she was consenting. So you can have a circumstance before the court where the wife brings a charge and says that my husband physically assaulted me, sexually assaulted me, and raped me because I did not consent. And the only thing the court can go on is whether they believe that she did not consent or whether they believe that the husband didn't reasonably think that she was not consenting. See, that is the danger. And now, when you look at the penalty involved with rape, where a man can go to jail for life, why would you want to bring the marriage institution into a situation where a subjective analysis by the court could determine whether or not a person can go to jail for life? Where in no circumstance can you bring an allegation of rape against the wife. But we're talking about equality, but we not, you notice in this whole argument, no one is pushing for provisions in the law, first of all, to punish a false report. In other words, if a woman brings a false allegation against a man, there should be provisions in the law
Yeah.
where she will be penalized
I agree.
with up to 15 years or whatever. The man can go to jail for life.
Mhm.
You can't let and create a circumstance where someone can just decide because of whatever development happens within that marriage
Go closer to the microphone for me.
that she can bring allegations that could end up taking a man's life away from him.
Brother Moultrie,
But would there not
respect.
be a burden of proof on the part of that woman? Does she not have to prove what she's alleging?
Yes, I just laid out what she must prove.
Right.
She must prove that there was penetration of the anus, the mouth, the vagina. She must prove that,
Right.
which will be very difficult to prove.
Within the
Not very
context.
difficult to prove in terms of the marriage concept,
Right.
because that is expected.
Right. That happens.
In a marriage, right?
Right.
The act of penetration was intentional,
Mm-hmm.
right? In other words, the man intended to penetrate her,
Right.
right? Well,
Mhm.
that's a normal in a marriage again,
Mm-hmm.
right? The complainant did not consent to the act of the penetration. See, that's the point right here.
And that is what is going to be extremely difficult to prove.
Exactly. Now, this is what I'm saying. It becomes subjective. If you have a person who is extremely persuasive in giving false reports and making false allegations, they can persuade the court that that happened when it actually didn't happen.
Okay, Michelle,
Right.
may I kindly respectfully interject?
Go ahead.
What I wanted
And then
to
we want to hear from Pastor Moss. Go ahead.
yes, because I don't want to forget this point. Now, I heard everything that Brother Moultrie just mentioned, according to the statutory law in England.
Mhm.
Okay? So let's hypothetically now bring that to the Bahamas. And let's say, and I've heard of the scenario that I'm about to mention to you, that a man and a woman, a man is cheating on his wife. She knows he's cheating. He knows, she knows he's cheating. And because he is cheating on his wife and she does not want to get a sexually transmitted disease, or she is angry with him for violating the sanctity of their marriage, she does not wish to have intercourse with him anymore. And he turns around and says, "You're my wife, so I can take what is mine because you're my wife." And he forces himself on her against her will. She didn't consent. Again, let's apply that hypothetically to the Bahamas. Can, in that situation, I know you said it's a hard thing to prove, Brother Moultrie. So I'm going to ask you again, morally, until it's legally established in the Bahamas, morally, do you consider that a man raping his wife? He forces himself against her will on her.
Let him answer. Let him answer.
Morally, we have to consider the circumstances in which it happened.
But that's why I gave you that hypothetical, so just now, hypothetical.
Yeah, you've given me a hypothetical situation that is designed to trap me into giving the answer that
respectfully, no, not to trap you.
No, no.
Like I said,
listen. Let me answer. Let me answer.
Right.
Because the world don't work on hypotheticals, you know. The law don't work on hypotheticals. We work on evidence. See, if you have a circumstance where the allegation is made, you get the burden of proof will always remain with the wife who's bringing the allegation. Then the standard of proof, as we laid out, have to be different. See, this is why I say you cannot just decide to just strike out a few words from a statute to bring something like marital rape in. You have to examine the entire picture and the entire circumstance.
Respectfully, Brother Moultrie, respectfully, allow me please to ask you this question.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
You're not letting me finish. All right. Let me give you a scenario, since you've given scenarios and hypotheticals. A wife and a husband are together in a loving relationship, and they have sex repeatedly, and on occasions, the wife complains about the physicality of the sex.
Mm-hmm.
And she says certain things to her husband that could easily lead him to believe that she wants him to stop. And then he decides to slow down or to stop. And she said, "What you doing? Don't stop." But she in the process can give the impression that she's not consenting. Now, one of the things that I'm saying that should happen in this whole process is that provision should be put in the law that if a man abuses his wife sexually and she wants to make a complaint, the complaint should be made immediately and the complaint should be made on the first instance. And the reason for that is if you have a man believing that you are consenting when you are not consenting, and he does it this time, and you're making certain representations to him, and the next time you decide to go file a complaint. You see the kind of situations that can happen. So you would wind up with a situation where a man is laying down in his bed and he feels the warm body of his wife suddenly, and the first thought that would enter his mind is, wow, I'm wondering if this woman is setting me up for allegations of rape. Before he even thinks of having sex. This is what this could lead to.
And I've heard other people say that.
No, this is what this is.
Can I just say,
this is what this can lead to if certain provisions are not made in the law to make certain that we minimize. We can't probably eradicate those circumstances, but we have to make sure that you can't have a circumstance where a woman, a wife, can allow a husband to quote unquote rape her 3 or 4 or 5 times, and then on the 6th time she come and file allegations of rape, because you cannot reasonably accuse a man of not knowing or intentionally doing something that against her consent and against her will when she has permitted it to happen 4 or 5 times.
So she doesn't have a right. You're saying to me that if for whatever reason she allowed something to happen 3 times before, and she finally builds up the courage to say, enough is enough, I'm tired of this abuse, I'm now going to ask him not to do this to me anymore, she has forfeited that right because she didn't speak up early enough?
No, what I'm saying is we want to remove the distinguishing factors in rape of strangers by strangers and rape within the marital union. See, because what we would be effectively setting up here is distinguishing factors to bring some persons before the court on the same charge. In other words, if a woman is raped by a stranger, usually, first of all, that is not expected. The man DNA is not expected to be there, and so on. So the evidence can actually easily convict if the evidence is there, right?
But not all the time, Holly. There are situations of date rape. I could be dating somebody, right, for 6 months. And I decide for whatever reason, I don't want to continue with this sexual relationship with you. And you decide, man, you joking. I didn't have this before, and I taking this tonight. That's still rape.
But what I'm saying is reported the first instance.
Man, look here. Let me read. And I want to get Pastor Moss's voice in here. Let me just read something from one of our Facebook viewers. We seem to be missing the point and making many assumptions and hypotheticals on what if a wife is being truthful or not. This is all deflection. We can't just quote the law and Christianity when it pushes our biases and agenda. What about the victims?
Michelle, I want to get off so you can continue, but I really must ask this question though, in respect to the points that Brother Moultrie just mentioned. The reason I brought the hypothetical to him just now, Brother Moultrie, to you, is because if I heard you correctly earlier, right now in our law, statutorily, rape in marriage is not recognized, correct?
Correct.
Maritally, in our laws in the Bahamas.
It's not. But
that's why I brought the hypothetical.
But sexual abuse is recognized.
Understood.
And the same punishment can be applied in a circumstance where there was some sexual abuse by a husband.
Brother Moultrie, allow me, because I want to get off the line. Allow me just to say this. The reason I ask you those questions, and I, as a Bahamian male, heterosexual male, is concerned about this, is because at the end of the day, a woman has the right morally, just as she says yes to the I do's, she has the right morally to say to that man, no. If that husband is cheating on her, if that husband is abusing her, she has the right morally to say to him, no. And that's why I ask you, sir, do you on the grounds morally agree or believe that a man can rape his wife?
All right, JT.
Yes, I will hang up. Michelle.
Yeah, I gotta let you go because we have to take a break, and
Sure.
we haven't heard from Pastor Moss in a minute. So let's take this break. I missed my 2:30 break. It's now 3:02. Let's take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to let Pastor Moss chime in on this. The numbers to call 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, the WhatsApp line. And somebody is sending voice messages on the WhatsApp line. People, I can't listen to your voice note while we on the air. Text only on the WhatsApp line, 801-0271, 801-0271. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors. Stay with us. This is GPS.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rim, fence, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Glasses love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company along with Halson, Moultrie, and Pastor Cedric Moss. We're talking marital rape from the male perspective. And the telephone numbers to call 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, and the WhatsApp line for text messages only is 8010271. I want to read a quick WhatsApp text, and then Pastor Moss, I'm going to bring you in here because we need to hear your voice. We haven't heard from you in a minute. All right, so this texter says, why won't your guest answer the questions asked of him by the caller? The scenario the caller brought to him are legitimate cases that he knows actually happens within marriage when a spouse cheats. How about a case where a husband and wife reside in the marital home but are legally separated, and the husband now rapes her because he feels she is still his? I think the problem is we have men who are simply thinking about sex and not the rape aspect of this matter. Your guest is simply avoiding the question. It may be hypothetical, but it is a legitimate line of questioning, one of flesh. Biblically, can that simply mean equally yoked? All right, Pastor Moss, let's get you in here. I know you've been sitting there patiently listening to all of this, and you made some very important points during the break.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that we're having in the discussion is that we're not defining terms, and people are using terms and they have different things in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Moultrie a while ago quoted from the UK legislation and talked about rape, and he was correct in saying that a woman in the UK cannot commit the crime of rape because rape defined in the UK's legislation is penile penetration.
Mm-hmm.
If you use a body part or some instrument, that's called penetration, sexual assault. It's called sexual assault by penetration, whereas the other one is called rape. And then indecent assault would be the third category.
Okay.
In our context, rape is defined differently. So, for example, let's say you have a Bahamian couple living here in Nassau. They're married, and the husband goes home. His wife is asleep. He wants to have intercourse, but she's asleep. So he tries to wake her up, and he touches her in a way that is captured in Section 4 of the Sexual Offenses Act, which does say that a certain kind and degree of touching can be sexual intercourse. Now, based on what they're trying to do with the amendments, that would fall in the category of not having consent, and that would be rape, whether reported or not. The offense takes place when it is committed, whether the person knows about it, whether they report it or not. So if somebody steals from you, whether you know they stole from you or not, they still committed the crime of stealing. Now, that same couple, if they go to the UK and the same thing happened, that would not be rape. That would not be rape. And so I think we need to understand that rape, the definition of rape is really what you decided to be, and sexual intercourse is what you decided to be based on your jurisdiction. Now, for me, I do not use the term marital rape because in marriage, sex is legitimate. What is illegitimate is the force and violating a person's will. Mm-hmm. And so really what must be punished is the violation of that person's will, and the nature of the violation should the punishment should fit the nature of that violation. So to answer JT's question, I do believe that non-consensual or forced sexual intercourse in marriage is immoral. It is a violation of the one flesh, the love and the mutuality that's supposed to be existing between a couple. Any violation of that is immoral and it should be punished. And the thing is this, right? The law is for the lawless. The law is for the lawless.
Say it again, please.
The law is for the lawless. And no law-abiding person should be concerned about an appropriate law that seeks to bring protection to people who will be violated by those who are lawless.
Exactly.
And so I don't understand the concern. However, in its current form, the approach that the government is taking in this draft will be problematic, and it would create more mischief than it actually cures. And I believe that the correct approach is the approach that they took in 2018 that somehow is now being ignored.
Which is what?
The approach in 2018 was essentially leaving rape as it is between unmarried persons. Because think about it. If a man is not married to a woman, he should get consent for every single interaction with her, from a touching, certainly to sexual intercourse, and every single moment of it. But the fluidity that happens in marriage, the covenant that that couple makes when they exchange their vows, the understanding is that sex is consented to. Now, that consent is not irrevocable. That consent is not permanent. That consent can be withdrawn as they're walking out of the church. That consent can be withdrawn temporarily or permanently, and it needs to be respected. And so I think we need to distinguish between those. But what was done in 2018 was we already have protection for spouses in a marriage that is before the courts. So if your marriage is in some stage of divorce, if your marriage is in some stage of legal separation or some order of the court, you have protection now. Now, the protection, I believe, is not sufficient. I think it should be up to life in prison, because there are some heinous acts that take place in marriage of forced intercourse that the allowance should be there, that if this is egregious enough that it merits life in prison, it should be life in prison. But what they sought to do in 2018 was to add a subsection to Section 15 to cover marriages that are not before the courts. And the way they approached talking about consent really tried to capture the realities of the interactions between husbands and wives. I mean, I believe that a husband should be free to initiate sexual intercourse with his wife,
right,
without saying, "Sweetheart, can we have sex?"
Right.
But of course, if she says no to his initiation, then he needs to stop. And if he doesn't, then he is violating her bodily autonomy. He is violating her will, and that should be punished.
You know, there are those in the church who are going to say that pastor is not adhering to the word of God, because the word of God doesn't say that the two shall become one flesh and one can withdraw from the one flesh agreement at will.
The Bible clearly says that in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, it talks about the mutuality involved in sexual relations, that there should be agreement to withhold sexual relations. And it is obvious that if there's agreement to withhold it, there should be agreement to come together. And so this idea that, and see, the funny thing is this, right? If two persons have mutual authority over one another, no one has the right to violate the other without that person agreeing to the violation. So the whole thing is a nonsense. To use 1 Corinthians 7 as the basis to violate a person is a nonsense, because it becomes circular. Because when the husband goes to try to violate his wife, she says, no, I have control of your body, don't touch me. It makes no sense. It makes zero sense. It's absurd. But it is so, I'll tell you the thing that's troubling for me. The place that a woman should be safest and most loved is in marriage. And yet in our country, that is the most dangerous place for her to be right now, because we offer no protection to women against lawless men.
I like the point
I wouldn't completely
Okay, go ahead.
agree that there's no protection. There may not be, at this instance, a marital rape protection. But the Penal Code and the Sexual Offenses Act provides protection for sexual assault.
With respect, I disagree, sir.
It provides
it does not.
The protection.
It does not.
You
Spouses
cannot bring rape allegations, but you can certainly bring sexual assault.
Okay,
no,
so
there is not. The only person who could bring the sexual assault allegation is a person in a marriage before the courts. That's Section 15 of the Sexual Offenses Act. If your marriage is not before the courts, your husband can sodomize you. He can force you to perform oral sex on him, and he can do whatever he wants to do with you. You have no legal recourse.
No, that is.
If he punches you, you have legal recourse against that.
You get before the courts. Because of an act that occurred before you got before the courts. In other words, if something happens, if a criminal act or enterprise occurs, and there is no report of that criminal act or enterprise, it would appear as if it didn't happen. But when it is reported and brought to the attention of the police, and the police do the investigation, and they determine that charges should be brought, then the matter is then brought before the courts.
So based on what you just said, it's only valid if it's reported.
No, that's not true.
No,
that's not true.
Not only valid if it's reported. It can happen.
Okay.
Right? It can happen.
Right.
But if it is not reported,
there is no law.
There is no offense.
No, sir, that's not right. There is no law. The Sexual
Offenses Act?
The Sexual Offenses Act defines sexual intercourse as anal intercourse, oral intercourse, and vaginal intercourse. And it accepts the definition of rape that we have accepts married people. Married people cannot commit rape, and the only other crime that can be committed in terms of a sexual crime happens between people whose marriage is before the courts. So if your marriage is not before the courts, your husband can force himself on you anally, orally, with an instrument, and there's nothing that you or the police can do.
No, that is.
I'm telling you, I'm not asking you, sir.
All right.
I absolutely.
We have a call on the line.
The act is here. Ms. Moultrie, the act is here. The act is here.
I want y'all both to look over the act while we take this call.
Truthfully, if what he's saying is true, we don't need these amendments.
Right. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Welcome.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Let me deal with the church part. The church part, people that in the church shouldn't even worry about the law, because that law is for lawless. If I go home, just say me, if I believe I go home and I touch my wife and say, I want whatever tonight, and my wife, the same scripture people are talking about, 1 Corinthians in the 7th chapter, and my wife, she tell me, say, well, honey, later. Okay, well, all I have to do, being a believer also, she's a believer, I'm a believer, she tell me later. Where is the God inside of me to show compassion to hear what she say? If she say later, where's the God in me to be compassionate and gentle, say, well, okay, later. And, so when she say later, well, she will fulfill what she say. And at the end of the night, she happy, I happy. So it's all about one not say, well, oh, well, the word say, well, your body don't belongs to me, my body don't belong, and whatever it is. No, it's showing the compassion, the concern for one another. And after that, now, when I begin as a believer to step out of God's law, then I facing the law of the land, because if I don't show the compassion, you see what I'm saying?
We're listening. You've made the point? You done with your point? Are you done with making your point?
No, see what I'm saying? When I show the compassion of God's law, and when I walk out of the will of God now, His law, and I try to harass and say, oh, your body belongs to me. See, where is compassion in me? Where's the love of God inside of me? So then that's when the Lord of land step in and say, wait a minute now. You step over the line, and that's when now I have to face the Lord of the land, because I go maybe try to do something to her or to force her. You see what I'm saying?
All right. Thank you for calling.
Okay.
You gentlemen were arguing back and forth about what the penal code says and what it doesn't say, and you both have the document in front of you, and you're both saying two different things. But
Well, I was reading from Section 6 of not the Penal Code, but the Sexual
Offenses Act.
Right?
Yeah.
And it says indictable sexual offenses, right? And it says any person, male or female, who commits rape, B, attempts to commit rape, or C, assaults any person with intent to commit rape is guilty of an offense and liable to imprisonment for life.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the law as it exists allows you to bring assault charges before, under Section 6 of the Indictable Offenses section of the Sexual Offenses Act, to bring charges of assault.
Talking to the mic.
Of assault against any person, whether it's male or female. This is the point I was making earlier, that we are bringing this marital rape concept into the law and advocating for it to be enacted, when in fact the law already covers sexual assault by any person with an intent to commit rape.
Now, Pastor Moss, why are you saying that does not?
With respect, the issue is not between male or female. The issue is between married and unmarried. If the person is unmarried, they can do what you said. But this is what no. It does matter. Let me finish. See, you're in 3. You're in 6. You need to start at 3. This is what 3 says. Rape is the act of any person not under 14 years of age having sexual intercourse with another person who is not his spouse. So you cannot jump to 6. The any person in 6 is not a married person. The any person in 6 is a non-married person.
Because 3 made that clear.
Married people are exempted from the possibility of committing rape. In our laws, it's not.
But they are not exempted from committing sexual assault.
So you're going on to another thing now. We're talking about rape at the moment.
We're talking about sexual assault.
No.
Rape is only a form of sexual assault.
It is a form, but it is a technical definition that we have. The only other assault that we have is in Section 15, which is sexual assault by spouse, and that can only happen between persons in a marriage before the courts. So if your marriage is not before the courts, you cannot commit rape and you cannot commit sexual assault by spouse.
All right, explain this to me then. This is, to me, clear language, simple language. It says any person.
But
Yeah,
that any person is an unmarried person.
It doesn't say that.
It says it in section 3.
It doesn't say that
No,
in
you
section
reading,
6
sir,
with
no.
details. What
So,
the
so,
indictable offenses
so
are.
based on what you're saying, Holly, you are going by 6. Pastor Moss is going by 3. Does one take precedence over the other? Is 3
comes
weightier
before
than 6?
3 comes before 6. You don't know what rape means until you read what it says in 3. And if what he's saying is correct.
3 clearly defines.
3 defines who can rape. A married person cannot commit rape against his or her spouse. And the victim.
Who was arguing that?
You're arguing that.
I'm arguing
you're saying
assault.
no,
There's an indictable offense.
you're saying that a married person can bring a charge of rape, and I'm saying
no, I didn't say that.
So
I
what you're
said
saying that
a married
instead,
person can bring a charge of sexual assault, and it has the same penalty of rape.
So what you're saying then,
6
Holly?
doesn't address sexual assault. 6 addresses rape.
Right. So what are you saying is this: as opposed to putting rape within the context of marriage by changing 3, a person who feels that they're being raped within their marriage could get the same result by
No.
applying 6.
No.
That's what you're saying,
No,
right?
They cannot. It's impossible.
Exactly.
No, there was a case before the courts the other day on that. It's impossible.
And the case that was before the court, the judge was making it clear that in that divorce proceedings, you could not raise the issue of marital rape because the law didn't provide for it. That was the only point she was making.
She made several points.
She didn't make the point that because the law didn't provide for marital rape, that you couldn't bring sexual assault charges. Because cruelty under the Act for Divorce provides you to bring allegations of assault and abuse, whether it be sexual or not.
But that's not a crime there. If you in a divorce proceedings, that's civil. So you're not pursuing any criminal offense.
But what I'm saying here in section 6, these section 6 lists the indictable offense, the indictable sexual offenses.
And I submit to you,
assaults any person with intent to commit rape. It didn't say commit rape, Assaults any person with the intent.
no married person can avail themselves of section 6.
But it seems to me, with all due respect, Holly, that we're jumping through a lot of hoops to try to keep the word rape out of marriage. You're saying, okay, we for various reasons that you've raised on the show already, we cannot put the word rape within marriage because it could be used against an innocent person. And so therefore, as a person who thinks you're going or experiencing that, you just need to go to 6, which is up for debate here at this table as to whether or not you can even do that. But it seems like we're jumping through a lot of hoops just not to call a spade a spade. What I agree with the statement that was made earlier, that the law is for the lawless. If you are in what has been described on this show as if you are in a healthy, loving marriage, you're not always going to agree on everything. You're not always going to, there may be times you may have disagreements or whatever that be. You're 2 human beings, 2 different histories. That's expected, and there's no perfect person, and you're not going to be perfect just because you walk down the aisle and say, I do. But I hardly believe, and I could be naive in this thought, but I hardly believe that there's a woman out there, if we want to make this a conversation about male and female marriage between a man and a woman, if you have a husband who is treating you with love, dignity, compassion, as one of the callers spoke about, shows care and concern, is doing what they need to do to be a good husband, I don't personally know of any woman who will mess that up by bringing a false accusation against a man who is treating her well. And I think we are so busy trying to protect those who are not lawless that we tend to overlook those who are lawless in this conversation. My thing is, if you are not guilty of being lawless in this situation, what you worried about? That's what I don't understand in this conversation.
I think there is something to be concerned about, Michelle.
Please explain.
Okay. I am comfortable with the definition of rape applying between persons who are not married. I am not comfortable with the definition that as a married man, that I could touch my wife in a particular way
And that is
that's
considered rape.
captured in the definition of sexual intercourse.
I understand that.
Without her prior consent. And I find myself having committed the offense of rape based on how they defined it, whether she reports it or not. And again, rape, Brother Moultrie read the definition of rape from the UK. They define it to penile penetration.
That's different than ours, though.
Ours is broader. It can be penile penetration, bodily, some part of your body, an instrument, all kinds of things. And so I think that we need to carefully approach how we criminalize forced intercourse in marriage. I am supportive of the right position of criminalizing non-consensual sex in marriage, but I do not support this break the whole house down, put everybody in one big room and control them, and a married man has to relate to his wife with whom he has a covenant the same way two single people need to relate to them to one another, or two strangers need to relate to one another. That's wrong.
We have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
Michelle.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, this is a very interesting topic as usual. I just wanted to draw one kind of illustration. And the sad thing is, like the gentleman said earlier, this is a very sad topic to have to be having in this day and age, right? And the truth is, I agree with all three of y'all. It's kind of strange to say that, I guess. But like, for one, to touch on a topic like how, like, could imagine like you and your wife maybe not getting along too well today, or she's mad at you. Maybe you didn't throw the garbage the night before, whatsoever. Or she's just not speaking to you, and then she walks past in a nice little tight short pants or a nice long skirt, and you find her attractive.
She tried to trap you.
No, and then no, maybe just a long, nice skirt. She's just your wife. That's the beauty of your eyes, right?
Right.
And you just go ahead and do a little like sexy tap on the butt or something like that, right? And because she's mad at you, then she calls the police and said you sexually assaulted her.
Yeah.
You understand? And
I agree with that. Should not be allowed. I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's why it's so. And like I said, I agree with all three of y'all. But that's why it's so dangerous. The laws that y'all are trying to table right now against the marriage, and I know it's just unfortunate because, like you say, if you're supposed to be compassionate to your wife, seems that way her to you and understand it, and because if you're like Corinthians 7 said, her body belongs to you and your body belongs to her. And so if she say maybe today you cannot get your way with me, the truth is you should not be able to have your way with her. Seems that way, back and forward. And so, like I say, this is a very sketchy topic. And the truth is, I think why plenty good men are really fighting against it is because they are standing up for the word of God. When you become one, it's hard to do harm to yourself, and it's almost impossible. But like the gentleman asked earlier too, he said, "Can you murder yourself?" No, you cannot murder yourself. You can't be charged for murdering yourself. But when you go to hell, you are condemned. When you die, you are condemned to hell because you were charged with suicide. Right?
I was just about to say, if you murder yourself, it's called suicide.
Exactly. So, like the gentleman, he was being kind of sinister. You cannot be You cannot murder yourself, but you can kill yourself, right?
You can murder your wife.
Pardon me?
You can murder your wife.
You can murder your wife, and like I say, but that's still not relevant when it comes to the sexual affliction. When, as like I said, I agree with you also. You can be uncompassionate to your wife, and whatever you want to call it, you could call it rape, you could call it sexual assault. But the truth is, once you violate somebody, that's an offense. Just like the caller said earlier too. Like how did he put it? I can't remember. But anyway, like I was saying, it's a very sketchy topic, and you guys are handling it quite maturely, and I appreciate your contribution to the matter. It kind of opens my eyes a little more. So y'all continue, and God bless.
All right, thank you for calling. I have a Facebook viewer that says, let's stop with the blanket statements that all women are wicked and goal is to imprison their innocent men. It's an insult to good wives. Ah, boy. Okay, we have to take a break. Boy, I don't know, gentlemen. This is going by so fast. I don't know. You know, there's so much more ground to cover, but we have to take this commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation about marital rape from a male perspective. My guests today are Halson Moultrie and Pastor Cedric Moss, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors. Don't you go anywhere.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. VTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here, along with Halson, Moultrie, and Pastor Cedric Moss. We're talking marital rape from a male perspective today. The telephone numbers to call: 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, 8010271 is the WhatsApp line for text messages only, not voice notes, not calls, text messages only. Gentlemen, someone raised it during the show earlier. I think it may have been one of our Facebook viewers. I want to ask this question because I've heard all of the arguments back and forth today. And I know that, Mr. Moultrie, you have an issue with the numbers as reported by that UV study. But my question is this: whether it's 4,440 or 4 or 1, what of the rights of women in this country and men who are being brutalized sexually, whether you want to call it rape or not? Should there not be some consideration for giving them an avenue through which they can get legal recourse for actions committed against them? Now, there's been some disagreement here at the table today as to whether or not that now exists through the Sexual Offenses Act. But the reality in our country is that there are far too many people, I'm not talking male or female, people who, for whatever reason, whether it is unresolved trauma in their own lives, whether it is external influences like some kind of narcotic or other substance that is causing their behavior to not be acceptable. But whether we want to argue back and forth or not, the reality is that we have Bahamians right now who are suffering from the degradation of sexual abuse within marriage. Now, some say you can't call it rape. Others are saying rape is rape no matter if it's in a marriage or not. And we have to understand, I know you raised during the break, Holly, about the danger of stigmatizing children involved in a relationship where an accusation or allegation may be brought forward by one spouse to the next. Caller, coming to you right now. But the reality is, if we are allowing within our society this toxic kind of behavior to prevail in or outside of a marriage, we are damaging our society in any event. Because you're talking about, in the case of a woman that may be being abused in such a way by her husband, that same woman has to now go and provide nurturing for her children. So if she is in a position where she's being sexually assaulted, degraded, dehumanized, how do you think she will raise her children? So to me, it's not right to say, well, if a woman brings an accusation against her husband, that's going to stigmatize the children. These children being negatively impacted right now, whether or not it is made public by a complaint or not. If they are being raised in that kind of toxic environment, I guarantee you they are being impacted negatively. And that will prove to be detrimental for our society moving forward. My 5 cents. We have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi.
Now, this is a touchy subject.
It is.
But this brings me back to what is written in the Bible. First of all, it says, wives, submit. Right? I can leave that piece. And then when you go before the Lord, it says, for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. The Lord didn't go and break down and say, i.e., if he won and you don't want, you should not. He didn't go down like how you go in the court under the law system. They say section B, section C. It says wives submit. The first thing a lot of females do in relationships, whether he's supposed to do this and he's supposed to do that, they deprive their significant other sexually, right or wrong. That's the first thing they do. Now, I just was spoken to a lady on my way to work. She's about 87 years old, and she was listening to this. And she said, these younger generations are getting too modernized. She said, she was married for 65 years. She said, when her husband was in his bad street, when he goes out, and he goes to the club or whatever, and she's home, and he comes home, she knows exactly what he wants, even though she's not in the mood, and she doesn't. She said, it was over in a few minutes, and she go back to sleep. You see what I'm saying? We getting too modernized, Americanized, with a lot of the things that is going on in society.
With all due respect, caller, this.
No, I mean, I know what you're gonna say.
No,
I know what you're gonna say. I think that's what I
don't know what I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
With all due respect, this is not the same world that your mother or grandmother lived in. We have a situation right now where you have so many more diseases that exist out there that somebody could be bringing home. It's not the same as back in the day when women had less options. Here's the thing. We, as a society, want our women today to be the same women of the 1950s who had to put up with men's foolishness because the man was the sole breadwinner, and she relied on him for the sustenance of herself and her children. A part of the problem when we go down that road is that today's man, many of them want their cake and eat it too. You want this woman to be the submissive wife that your mother and your grandmother was, but you ain't making the environment one that she, let me put it this way. Your Grammy didn't have to go out and work. Your Grammy didn't have to bring home no bacon. Right?
I agree with you, you know.
So men today like to jump on that. Oh, you gotta be a Proverbs 31 woman. That Proverbs, hold on, caller. The Proverbs 31 woman was a businesswoman because she had the option to choose to be so. She had a husband who could support her without her having to go out there and work. Nowadays, you have women who gotta go out and bring home just as much bacon as you. And oftentimes they gotta work harder than you on the job because they gotta, as a female, prove themselves just to be within that workplace. So the two of y'all come home tired. You now, because you expect her to be your Grammy, she now gotta come home tired, go in the kitchen, cook, clean, take care of the children, and then come and take care of you. this ain't the same world with your grandmother came up as a married woman in.
No, but see,
so when you want today's woman to be yesterday's wife, you need to become yesterday's husband.
I agree. But I was not addressing those ones who are out there cheating. I'm talking about the regular ones. You got the regular ones, and you got some women who deprive them based on simple stuff. I'm not talking about, and you know what? You know that there's a case that a husband could be charged with murder if he brings home a disease that is life-threatening. You know that, right? That's how it is now.
No, I didn't hear you. Repeat that. Say a husband could be charged with murder. What?
If he brings home a life-threatening disease to his spouse.
In which law?
It's in the law.
In which country?
Well, that's in the U.S. You know,
well, we're in the U.S. We're in the Bahamas.
Yeah, but most of the things what it's bringing forth now, what is coming forth now, is stemmed from the U.S. But that wasn't what I was meaning when I saying to be submissive. I wasn't meaning you have the ones who are abusive and who doing foolishness. They in a different category by itself. But you also are not addressing the fact that some women force these young men to not want to be home and want to go out because of the little things that is going on, what is causing them to deprive them sexually. And that is what I was addressing. Not the fact that you have a lot of men out there who's doing foolishness, right? And expect their wives to submit. I was not addressing that. I was addressing the fact that you have a lot of wives out there that are, like you say, men are sexually driven. 9 times out of 10. If you're not nagging the man and you're giving him what he wants, he can stay home. And that's what I was getting at. And because he don't want to stay home, because that is these similar situations. That's my 5 cents.
All right. I don't necessarily agree with you because some people just have. Anyway, we have another call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Michelle?
Yes.
JT, yeah, I will make it quick. Somebody misquoted me earlier, and I feel it necessary to call back to clarify the point I was making earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If morally, Michelle, a man can be charged, or legally, sorry, a man can be charged with with murdering his wife. If them two are one flesh, but he can be charged with murdering his wife, or she can be charged with murdering her husband, as has happened in this country many times before, then why morally is it not the same equal moral ground that a man could be guilty of raping his wife? That's the point I'm getting at. When you're talking about man and woman being one flesh before God, spiritually, that's true. But if a man cannot rape his wife legally, then why is it that a man is able to be charged by law of murdering his wife? And mind you, he should be charged with murdering her. But my point is, we can't have it both ways in this country. Either a woman has moral value or she doesn't. And husbands are supposed to love their wives as Christ loves the church. And Pastor Moss, will you kindly please read 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 8 through 10, because you made reference to it earlier when you said the law is not for the is for the lawless. I was hoping, Michelle, for you to read that last week, but I couldn't.
You've already referred to it, JD.
No, if you could kindly read it for the audience to understand.
Well, no, the audience, JT, the audience can read it, and for the sake of time, it's 1 Corinthians 1.
Okay, I just wanted to call back and clarify that point because
1 verses 7 through 10, something like that.
Yeah, 7 through 10, 8 through 10, yes, sir.
And for those of you who don't have a Bible, you could Google it.
Thank you for your time, Michelle.
All right. Thank you so much for calling. Man, gentlemen, we only got 6 minutes left in the show. Can you believe it?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is suggesting that we have a third show with both men and women on the panel, as opposed to just all female and all male. I don't know, quite frankly, how much more we can say on this matter that hasn't already been said. The bottom line is, I think that, well, again, I have to, full disclaimer, I've never been married, so I don't know what it is to be within the context of marriage when it comes to this discussion. I only know that as a human being, I would like to believe that if I end up, God forbid, in a marriage that is less than healthy, and I don't intend to have to wait all this time, end up in an unhealthy marriage. That's why I'm married now. Right? But I would hate to believe that I lose my human right because of the fact that I said I do, that my value as a human being is no longer applicable because I have tied myself to someone who turns out to be less than what I expected him to be. Then I no longer have a right as a human being to seek protection. I have a problem with that.
Michelle, if I can just quickly, for the sake of time, God has a problem with that. God would not create you to be subjected to that kind of condition. He made you in his image and his likeness. That is wrong. I do not see how people could raise their voices to involve God with that. That when you get married, you lose bodily autonomy and you lose the self-dignity to say yes and no. I mean, that's not of God.
I don't agree that anyone should be advocating that someone should lose their rights
as a human being.
As a human being, I believe that the marriage, the institution of marriage and the union is much, much deeper than that. I've been married for 43 years, and I can tell you I've never, ever even once considered raising my hand against my wife. I believe that a husband should love and cherish his wife. And I believe that there should be a certain level of understanding, a certain level of communication, and a certain level of compromise. For example, if I come home and I approach my wife and she indicates that she's tired or she isn't in the mood or whatever, right? If I'm really in pursuit of having sex that evening, I will pursue her for a while, and after a while, you get to know your spouse.
Right.
And so you would realize that, look, this is not a good time. She's not going to enjoy this at all. And I don't want to put her through a situation where she is not enjoying it. Likewise, sometimes she may approach me. And she would understand me well enough and know me well enough to know that if I don't proceed, right, there's some reason. She pursues for a while and then she understands that, look, maybe another day would be a better day because the husband wouldn't really be enjoying the sexual intercourse at that time. You see, it breaks down.
I need you to wrap this up, though, because we have less than a minute left.
Yes, it breaks down when there's lack of communication, lack of understanding, and lack of compromise. And that's when you have the challenges where the one person is at a different level, unequally yoked, like I said from the beginning.
Right.
And then you have a challenge.
30 seconds, Pastor. 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would end on the point of saying that we have consensus that forced intercourse in marriage is wrong. We just need to find the civility to agree on how to punish that.
Good point to end on. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both. If we do decide to do a panel with both male and female, I'm going to call on you both because I thought you were both fantastic in presenting your views. Until then, I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so you know what that means. It's going to be a Wellness Wednesday when we talk about matters of importance to your health and well-being. Do not miss it. Until then, take care, everybody. Be safe, and let's love one another.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests